So after Nia DaCosta's awesome take on Candyman hits theaters and gets everyone buzzing, there's talk of a sequel. You know, a follow-up to the classic 1992 flick starring Tony Todd. Fun fact, Candyman actually started as a short story by Clive Barker called The Forbidden in one of his famous Books of Blood volumes back in the day. Anyway, the original movie moved the action from Barker's Liverpool to the Cabrini Green housing project in Chicago. DaCosta's version keeps it in the Windy City, focusing on this artist dude named Anthony McCoy and his girlfriend Brianna, who move into the now fancy Cabrini area. Trouble starts when Anthony's art career hits a rough patch, and he stumbles upon the spooky legend of Candyman. You know, the guy who shows up if you say his name in the mirror 5 times? As Anthony dives deeper into the mystery, things get seriously creepy. His art starts reflecting Candyman's influence, and it's only a matter of time before they face off. Now, here's the exciting part. Candyman gets some killer reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, and folks are predicting it'll rake in big bucks at the box office. So with all the hype and potential success, it looks like we might just get to see more Candyman tales down the line. So could there be a Candyman 2 in the works? Well, it's looking pretty promising, especially considering how well the new movie's been received. Just like how David Gordon Green and Danny McBride breathed new life into Michael Myers with their killer Halloween reboot, there's a good chance Candyman could get a sequel treatment too. After all, Candyman is a big name in horror, and studios are always keen on building up familiar faces into fresh franchises. As for when we might see it, well, Candyman had a bit of a tough time with its release date, thanks to the pandemic. Originally, it was supposed to hit theaters in June 2020, but got pushed back a couple of times before finally landing in August 2021. If Candyman 2 gets the green light, we can probably expect it to stick to a more stable schedule, maybe sometime in 2023, if all goes well. But one thing's for sure, it'll definitely be another big screen experience. If Candyman 2 becomes a reality, you can bet Teyonah Parris will be back in action. I mean, the ending of the 2021 flick practically sets her up for a major role in any sequel with that cryptic tell everyone instruction. It'd be a shame not to follow through on that storyline. And of course, we can't forget about the iconic Tony Todd and Michael Hargrove, who both brought the Candyman to life. They'd definitely be key players in any future Candyman adventures. Now let's discuss what happened in the Candyman and what comes next. The climax of Candyman might seem a bit tricky to wrap your head around at first, especially with the unexpected way it unfolds. But trust me, the complexity is all part of the charm. As the pieces of the story start coming together, it all clicks into place in a way that not only wraps up the movie nicely, but also sets the stage for some exciting new chapters in the Candyman saga. It's not your typical straightforward ending, but that's what makes it so darn good. You might be wondering, why does Burke kidnap Anthony? Well, in classic slasher movie fashion, there's often a surprise twist with the villain, and Colman Domingo's character Burke fits the bill perfectly. He's got this eerie vibe going on and seems to know a lot about Candyman. Towards the end of the film, he finds Anthony McCoy in this strange state and decides to do something pretty drastic. He turns Anthony into a sort of Candyman replica right in front of his girlfriend Brianna. Burke does some pretty intense stuff like sawing off Anthony's arm, replacing it with a meat hook, and dressing him up to look like Candyman before calling the cops. But his motivations aren't just about being a bloodthirsty psycho or some kind of cult follower. There's more to it than meets the eye. DaCosta's soft reboot takes us back to where it all began, the Cabrini Green housing project, now condemned and facing gentrification. Burke, one of the few remaining residents, sees framing Anthony as his last resort to stop the neighborhood's transformation. In Burke's twisted logic, if another Candyman appears, it might scare people away and preserve the community. Burke holds on to the neighborhood's myths, even though Candyman has faded from memory. He witnessed his sister's death after summoning the original Candyman, Daniel Robitaille, through a mirror. Burke also recalls a childhood incident where he saw Sherman Fields, a man resembling Candyman, unjustly killed by police. Burke, being the lone witness to these events, sees Anthony as a new witness to carry on the legend of Candyman. Burke carries the weight of two intertwined narratives, the supernatural horror of Candyman and the harsh reality of violence in his community. To him, these stories are deeply connected, representing a cycle of oppression and tragedy that repeats throughout history. Each Candyman becomes a victim of racial violence, only to return from the grave to wreak havoc, as seen in the tragic loss of his sister. Burke, in his own way, has accepted this cyclical nature of events. He believes that perpetuating the urban legend is a way to protect his neighborhood from the relentless cruelty of the world outside. Now, another question is, what happened to Anthony? In a heartbreaking turn of events, Anthony is unjustly killed by the Chicago PD right in front of Brianna after being framed by Burke. As Brianna faces intimidation from the police to tell their version of events, she summons Candyman by uttering his name 5 times. When Candyman appears, he's surrounded by a swarm of honeybees, reminiscent of the torture endured by Robitaille before his death. However, Candyman takes on the appearance and voice of Anthony. Throughout the film, Anthony embarks on a journey to uncover his own past, having been abducted by Robitaille as a baby in the original Candyman. Initially, the myth serves as inspiration for his art, but as he delves deeper, it begins to consume him, both artistically and physically. His body begins to deteriorate, mirroring the grotesque appearance of Robitaille from previous films. Despite his efforts to distance himself from it, Anthony is inexorably tied to the Candyman legend and America's enduring history of racism. Returning to Cabrini Green, where he once lived as a baby, Anthony's presence strikes Burke as perfect symmetry, a cyclical repetition in which Burke himself plays a role by abducting Anthony, akin to Candyman's actions in the past. Both Burke and Anthony don similar brown coats, reminiscent of various black individuals who embodied different versions of Candyman throughout history, all of whom suffered under the weight of white supremacy. By the film's conclusion, both Burke and Anthony come to embody the enduring legacy of Candyman and the deep-rooted pain it represents for the people of Cabrini Green. Anthony becomes intertwined with this history, merging into the vengeful entity of Candyman. Given the open-ended conclusion of the latest Candyman installment, a sequel certainly seems like a strong possibility. After Candyman exacts vengeance on the officers responsible for Anthony's death, he briefly reveals his face to Brianna and instructs her to tell everyone. This sequel doesn't discard any of the series' established mythology. Instead, it builds upon it from a fresh perspective. Directed by Nia DaCosta, the first black filmmaker to helm a Candyman film, this iteration takes a closer look at the story of Candyman's murder and similar acts of violence over the years. Candyman is reimagined as a spirit of vengeance, still claiming innocent lives, but now targeting those complicit in systemic racism and police violence. While these updates to the character don't erase the previous films, which were predominantly told from the perspectives of white protagonists, they offer a vital realignment of Candyman's narrative. The focus on black perspectives and the acknowledgement of ongoing white supremacist violence reshape the essence of Candyman for a contemporary audience. As the film concludes, Candyman is portrayed as a fusion of both Daniel Robitaille and Anthony McCoy, symbolizing all the black victims of white supremacy. If the series continues under Jordan Peele's Monkeypaw Productions, Candyman is likely to remain a complex figure embodying the full weight of history and righteous fury. Well, that's it for today. What are your thoughts on the latest installment and where the story might go from here? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to stay updated with all our latest content. We appreciate your support, and we'll catch you in the next one.